So for anyone who's first timer on this call, we are very intentional. We spend a little bit of time to, discuss, get to know each other. And really the reason by that is you've got a great group of problem solvers here. And so we've got a great network. And so a great example of that is we had a couple questions from this team that I sent out with the Alice Helps update, and we got great answers. I have some of those answers that I'll share with those that asked, but continue to ask those questions that you maybe are challenged with, or hey, does anybody know of this resource? Because this is a great group of problem solvers. Lots of great information. Mark Tucker, will you please do a short, brief, quick introduction for Mr. Jim Cooper, and don't let him get away without answering the question.
Okay, fair enough. So our presenter today is Jim Cooper. He is the president and CEO of United Ways of the Pacific Northwest. And I serve as the board chair for that organization. So I've been working closely with Jim the past year for sure, and a couple years prior to that. So he's a great resource. And when Chris asked if I could present on the Alice data, the new report coming out, I thought, I could, but I know somebody better. He does this for media. He does it for other United Ways. And he's a strong voice within the entire United Way network. So I'm happy to introduce Jim Cooper, and I hope that was short enough. I'm sure there's more. So take it away, Jim, and you should be able to share your screen as well.
Great. That was perfect. Thank you, Mark. Every day is Be a Kid Day for me, and I actually happened to take my childhood coffee mug off the shelf this morning. It says Jim Super Sport. But my toy is kind of in the same line as Mark. This is my Tonka truck.
Nice.
And it's metal.
Yes.
And
That's
it used
awesome.
to hold all of my Hot Wheels or my Transformers or my Star Wars toys, and I just packed it around for years and years. When your parents finally clean out their house and downsize, that's when you get all the stuff from your childhood. So that's right. I'm still kind of going through a few things, but I love having that. So thanks for doing that, Chris. It's nice to think back and think about where we were and what we had, and kind of that forms who we are. And all of you look way younger than the toys you described. So that's pretty good videography on Zoom, or at least, right?
Right.
So I'm here to talk about Alice today, and I know you all have a good understanding. So I'm going to spend a few minutes kind of walking through the website and pointing out some of the data points from this year, but really want to be conversational and see if you have deeper questions about it, or have thoughts that you'd like to tease out in a conversation. So I like that. So I'll go ahead and share my screen and start walking through it. Can you, by just a raise of hands, how many have had a chance to look through the site or the report since it came out with the update this year? Obviously Mark's team. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll get you hooked up here. So let's see. So first of all, I'm just going to drop the link in the chat so that folks have it. Mark, is that zoomed in at an okay scale for you where it doesn't go over the edge of the screen?
Yep, for sure. You could probably zoom in a little more if you wanted, but it's pretty good.
Okay, is that all right?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so the point of Alice, asset limited, income constrained, employed, is to combat the federal poverty level, which is typically 10 to 15% all over the country, and not really a reasonable measure of the financial status of families in the United States, really in any community. And so you can see right here that in Idaho, it's 11%. These are 2022 numbers, and so there's a little bit of a lag in the data. We're really excited that this year we will be able to show, starting this year, we'll have an annual update to the data. So we'll be able to see more point in time along the way as we look at the long-term trends. So when you look at the poverty level, that's based on 1970s data about groceries being 1/3 of the average family income. And really, when you look at what it costs to live in every community, actually, we get up in the 30s or 40% for quite a few communities for the general population. And then when we disaggregate that data, we can see some much higher numbers actually. So that's the point, is to tell the story about what the reality of financial hardship is in all of our communities, and that this story is really a trend. So we've been doing this, and we're now in 35 states. It's a partnership with the United Way of Northern New Jersey, and actually started out with there and with Rutgers University. The bottom line is poverty, and this is the state of Idaho, and you can see it just staying flat. And then you can see a spike right around COVID in the ALICE numbers. And so there's some different dynamics going on in different parts of the country with the COVID data. A lot of what we see is costs going up and families falling into ALICE and migration. So we have people moving around the country to find cheaper places to live, or possibly moving for political or health reasons, and that can change the data dramatically. And we had, I think, a lot of different things happening in those first couple of years of COVID that have really shown in the data. And so I'm going to spend more of my time in your local community, but the families that struggled before the Great Recession, their situations got worse and they never recovered. And so a lot of this is a lag from the Great Recession, and then you add the pandemic to their story, and we've got a situation where people actually had a minute in time where they were doing a little bit better, because especially families with children, because of the child independent tax credits and the child care tax credits. And then when those federal programs went away, they were back actually in a worse spot. The other thing I want to point out before I go just a little bit further into the website is that in 2022, towards the end of the year, is when the eviction moratorium ran out. So housing prices went up quite a bit more after this point in the data, and it was not until early 2023 when we started to reach the peak of our inflation that we went through and are still sort of going through, but it's now kind of leveled off at a more normal rate. So logistically, so I want to just point out this little, there's a little glitch in the website they're trying to figure out, but it's because we have two navigation panes. And so the normal top nav that you would see on a website up here, and if you go to the site, I want to make sure you see this navigation. And sometimes with laptops, they're set with their settings at 150% scale, and it makes that navigation pane go away. So if you go into your settings for your display, you should be able to make either the laptop screen or the monitor that you're using go down to 100%. A lot of stuff will get smaller, but you'll be able to zoom in on the website and actually see this menu. So I wanted to point that out in case you're using it regularly. Okay, so let's look at Kootenai County. You can see, I don't know if anyone has any idea what happened in 2016, but I haven't seen a trend like this in any county I've pulled up individually as I've been doing this. But yeah, this really interesting drop in ALICE with an increase in poverty just in 1 year of data. And then you see kind of a drop and an increase in poverty while ALICE continues to tick up. Sorry, I wanted to have, I have it right here. So the percentages for Kootenai, and I'll talk to you about Kootenai, Bonner, and Shoshone counties. So in Kootenai, you have 10% poverty, with 29% Alice. So 39% of the population struggling to get by. In Bonner County, that's 32 and 12, so 44% struggling to get by. And I'm going to disaggregate this for you in a second. And then in Shoshone County, it's 43% Alice plus 17% poverty at 60% of the families struggling to get by. We can also change the data on the map in the website. So you can see here where I've chosen Kootenai County, and if I want to, I can add another county, and that will bring me an average of multiple counties, or I can show it individually again with Shoshone. And so you can see the lines are a little more flat in that county. It's kind of interesting to dissect what things are looking like in Kootenai County. But I'm gonna go back there. So who are these folks? And so this is probably the most important graph to me in this story in most counties that I've run into in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. So we talked about general population numbers in the 40s for two of your three counties that we're talking about today. And when we look at single female headed households, it's over 80% of the population that can't afford to pay their bills from one month to the next. And in the county, you know, the nice thing about disaggregation is you can actually look at the size of the population and target resources or programs to do wraparound services for a specific population in need. So we can see it's like about 2,200 families in this category. And then even single males running in the nearly 65% with about 1,300 families that are struggling in this county. We look at it by age, and we can see that it's really a little bit higher, what I call the bookends, under 25 and 65 and older. We can see the size of the populations again as we hover. We can look at it by race. We can see the Asian population at about 75%, the Black population a little over 60%. Hispanic population here seems to be closer to the average, which is interesting because I'm going to show you this for Shoshone County in just a second. And then this is American Indian and Alaskan Native population is also running around 75 or 70 or so percent. Always like to show the sponsor, so I'll go here before I show you a different county. Avista, especially in your neck of the woods, Idaho Nonprofit Center, the United Way of North Idaho, as well as many others. I just want to thank them for bringing this product to our region. It's really helpful in the anti-poverty conversation. And so let me show you this quickly for Shoshone before I move to the budget. So we look at Shoshone County. Am I saying that right? I'm sorry. I'm really bad at Idaho counties. Okay, thank you. I live in Olympia and I'm just getting used to them. So Mark's got me going pretty good, I think, so far. So the single female headed households are struggling at 90%. But you're talking about a county with a little over 5,000 households, and what can we, we can actually target quite a bit of work towards this, less than 200 households that are struggling in this population. Similarly with males. So you start to see what I wanted to show you here in the smaller county, and there's a lot going on with migration, and in Washington, we're seeing a lot of our elders moving from the cities out into the rural towns when they retire. So they can afford a house, they can afford to park their RV or whatever that is on their new fixed income. And that's resulting in people moving to places where there aren't services or where the cost of living might be a little bit lower, but they just are still struggling with that fixed income. And so we're starting to see in more and more places sort of an inverse picture. So when we look at this single female headed household, notice that poverty is higher than Alice. And that's not typical in any of the other graphs I've shown you so far. We can see also the age dynamic is more contrasting in Shoshone County. But I wanted to show you this because of the Hispanic line item in Shoshone County. So you have 65% poverty. So that's 65% of the population, a Hispanic population in that county, is at the lowest income in the region. Really struggling, but less than 100 families. And thinking about how that plays out in that community is something to think about as you approach, grant writing or service delivery in community. Okay, so look at the budget real quick, and please, if there's questions, drop them in the chat or raise your hand. And if I don't see it, Mark can bug me, and I'll stop and talk about your question. So the budget, here's the budget items. A couple of things to point out. So the first thing is especially in Kootenai County, when I show you the housing numbers, you're going to call me a liar. And so I just wanted to say that the housing numbers are based on the average that people were paying for housing in 2022. And so that doesn't mean that there's housing available on the open market for that price. And typically, we struggle with that because when we look in the want ads or we have friends that are looking for rentals, the prices are much higher. And what I found is people are actually much more stable in their housing than we think when we look at these populations, and they stay for a long time, and the rents don't go up as fast when people aren't moving around. We added some information to the budget this year that includes families having a home internet plan and a smartphone plan. The federal government saw a pretty big uptick in what people have been using for internet access since COVID. And so we want the researchers got that more accurate. And then also we're able to see in this report, like last year's, a breakdown of those taxes that I mentioned from COVID and see how they played out still in 2022 for these families. So we can click around by county and see some budget numbers here. This one is hard for my eye to track, so I always go a little bit further down here where I've put Kootenai County, and I like to look at families with kids because it gives me good context for working families. And so looking with here with 2 adults with 2 in childcare, you can see the housing combined with the utilities. You can see childcare and food. And one of the things that's really stark to me in doing this data since about 2014 or 15 is that food is now as expensive as housing and childcare in almost every community. And I'm on the city council in my town, and I've been doing housing policy and looking at childcare facilities for 13 years. And food is an easier policy lever than almost anything we talk about. And so thinking about how hard it is to build affordable housing or site permanent supportive housing, getting at the folks that are in this income bracket and looking at food, we have the distribution systems, we have the delivery systems, and we just need the money. And so to me, I just think about that as maybe a lower hanging fruit than we've been talking about for families because the costs have gotten so high. Transportation is also right neck and neck. So look at that family needing $80,000 to get by from 1 month to the next over the course of the year. I love this new feature. So this is the place I would spend a lot of time if I was writing grants about this and trying to crack a nut about a population. Is you can build a community and a family type so that you can zero in on the costs a little bit more and get a better idea. So if I go here, grab the county, so I'm going to go ahead and have it be 1 adult, I'm going to add one infant. I'm going to add a preschooler. And so you can see that that 3-person family needs to make $73,000 and a little bit of change above to get by from month to month. And we saw it was a little bit higher for the family of 4, which makes sense. But what happens when we add in a grandparent? And so now you've added more than the Social Security income to that family's costs without more revenue than the Social Security income. So that family with really one wage earner and maybe a more fixed Social Security income needs to make $93,000 a year to get by. And again, you can play with this by county or multiple counties. So one of the things that I think I've been guilty of is spending too much time talking about what survival budget is. And so I just showed you the survival budget. But what does sustainability look like, or what does stability look like? And when we add in 10% for savings and think about a little bit of extra for movies or going out to eat, that family of 2 adults and 2 in childcare needs to pull off $131,000 a year. Now, I'll ask you now, anybody seen jobs even in the 90s in your community? Over $100,000 a year? Do you see those very often, if ever? And so this is a conversation that people are not having, and you are, and you're the folks that can go out and tell this story in your community and help folks just pay attention to what's going on. And in the numbers, in fact, if you go to the North Idaho Press, or is it North Idaho or Coeur d'Alene Press, Mark?
Coeur d'Alene Press.
Coeur d'Alene Press, there's an article yesterday, and they talk about the growth of the population in Idaho being in the 20% or so since 2010. And the growth in the Alice population has gone up by 48%. And so it's really, the population is growing. I think we're in a crisis as a country, and we're all talking about how the unemployment rate is rock bottom. The federal poverty levels at rock bottom. Gross domestic product and corporate revenue are at all-time highs, and more families are struggling every single month. So I'll just wrap up here. There's much more to the site, including legislative, a page where you can look at and talk to your legislators. I find this to be extremely beneficial, talking to elected officials of all types, shades, and color. They think in working family terms, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And you might not get to the same policy path with those two populations, but having the conversation and showing them the data and not making it about wage, but making it about the reality for families, they'll at least start paying attention. So we have a mapping tool. And so on the mapping tool, we can actually hover over counties and see, here's Bonner, here's Shoshone. And this gives us the ability to look at sub-county geography. So we can look at zip codes, sub-county places, and places. There's also all of the data that I already showed you built into this map. So you can kind of scroll around and look at the different things. But when we look at places, got to zoom in here, that allows us to look at the cities. So we can see Pend Oreille City, Idaho. You have a 70% of the population below the Alice threshold, compared to next door in Sandpoint City, it's only 47. We look at Coeur d'Alene City, you're at 45, so right at the state average. Kellogg City, 65. Post Falls, 44. So it's really cool. And then you can also look at that by, like, as I said, the sub-county places or the zip codes. So I know one of the biggest benefits to your meeting is the networking time at the end. So I don't want to eat up too much of your time, but are there questions or places I could dig in a little bit more for you in this space?
I had a quick question. the annual totals at the end of those tables, is that the threshold that you guys use to determine if somebody's ALICE population or not?
Yeah, so in the
Yeah.
survival budget, that total budget for their family type would be the threshold for their family. And then
Perfect.
and so actually in Washington, we're working with workforce development boards to look at what using the ALICE threshold instead of poverty when they talk about the services that people looking for work or in new and work need, and then also, is it survival or stability that we want to work them towards?
Perfect. Thank you.
Jim, I have a question.
Go ahead, development one.
Okay, sorry about that. What month were these numbers pulled from? I know it was 2022. Is that the entire year?
Yeah, it's an average of the year. So
Okay.
it's largely Census Bureau data from the American Community Survey. There's also a fair bit from HUD and the Treasury, and so it's an average that's released. They released a whole set of data at the end of the year, typically in like the end of December, early January for the whole year.
Okay.
And just a context as you're looking at this data, there's a blip in 2020 because the American Community Survey data was considered experimental because it was so poorly utilized in the census, and the way they started changing racial questions and gender identity questions, it actually resulted in a massive under count in the census, and so they threw out that data set essentially. So we skipped that year.
Is there an estimate of where these numbers are for 2024?
Higher. Yeah, I mean, so that's what I talked about at the beginning, the housing crisis. You think about, and I know it's stabilized a little bit now, but in 2020 to 2022 or 23, Boise was the most upside down housing market in the United States. So there's and that's being that the housing costs you couldn't pay for the housing costs with the average salaries, right? So it just was upside down. That started to stabilize, but you add that to inflation, which is not at its peak here yet. At the end of this year, the rest of the tax credits for those families went away. So there's $400 or $500 in most families, even still for this year. And that went away. And so I believe the situation continues to get worse. And I haven't seen anything in the Pacific Northwest anywhere that's going to change these numbers for the better at a population level. Now, I am seeing states start to focus a little bit more on subpopulations that might help the general population numbers. For instance, we're seeing more and more grant money coming in through the federal and state governments around weatherization and home energy that could help bring costs down for these families rather than passing the cost on to them that they need to upgrade their equipment or do whatever, but nothing at a scale that would help. In fact, I'm sure that if we started talking about universal food for these families, that we might be able to get some traction all over the Pacific Northwest, just because of the cost comparisons to the housing conversations.
So Jim, question for you, and you kind of alluded to in that answer, but great information, but how are communities, how are agencies using this data? I would suspect education would be one. You'd mentioned, more laser focused grant writing. What else? How are people using this data? Yeah,
I mean, so I've seen it in city council planning all over the region. I've seen it in state level government documents. In Washington, our Department of Transportation is using this data to design transportation planning and facilities. Our Department of Health and Human Services and our Department of Commerce are using this data. And so getting it into the government vernacular is really important, because then policy can be set based on real stories. And I think the other big thing is what are policy levers that you could consider in your community, and not that that's what your group here is, but I've seen a lot of times in my life where these groups become networking groups, and they're itching for action, right? And so how can you take some data points like this and churn them into an advocacy campaign in your community? That could be around childcare, that could be around transportation in the bigger towns. That could be around food. And I've actually seen, when a group of service, human services folks come together and start talking to the city council, it only takes 5 or 10 people to show up at city council and their ears perk up. You do that for a couple weeks, they're going to start studying it. You start asking them for something specific, and they're going to really look at it because they know that you have a lot of power behind you in the community. And so that's where I'd like to spend time, is particularly in the childcare, housing, transportation, and food space, because those are places that are often lacking good advocacy groups in local communities.
Awesome. Any other questions for Jim? They're speechless, Jim.
I just threw all this liberal policy at them. I'm sorry.
Well, fantastic. Again, great information. Thank you for joining our call today. It's been fantastic. Feel free to hang out with us for the next 16 minutes, but you have to go. We understand that. But let's switch gears. Let's move into our virtual roundtable. So for anyone that's new, really, this is your opportunity to get some mic time, so you can share an update on your agency. You can share maybe a challenge that you're navigating and ask for ideas and thoughts. Or of course, we also love to hear wins. So what's going well? What win happened this last month? So no particular order. We'll get through as many as we can, and if we don't get to everybody, then you can send me your updates and I'll make sure they get out to this team. So who would like to kick it off?
This is Stephen with Equus Workforce Solutions, and just want to give an update that some of our funding is used towards training, and where Idaho Launch has been postponed until August. We still have resources available, so if you have individuals you're working with, you can reach out to us. I'll just put our website in the chat, and we can try and help them out if they're looking for resources for training or any other supportive services.
Excellent, thank you.
I just have a question that I think somebody in this group would have an answer to. So I received an email about the Community Care Fund granting, and I was wondering if anybody knows typically how much they award for those grants.
It's typically around 5,000. I think the most has been 15,000.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking. Thank you.
Yep.
I could go next.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm Liz with Safe Start. If you don't know us, we are here in Coeur d'Alene. We provide resources like specifically education, but we also have car seats, brand new car seats, and portable cribs, and training for your team on child passenger safety. So if you're transporting kiddos, happy to come in and do a quick little training. If you need a safe sleep training, your staff's caring for infants, happy to do that too, no cost. I love doing it. We just finished up our spring round of our rural education outreach program. That's why I wanted to hear the data today. We visited 24 rural sites, so Priest River, Naples, oh my gosh, Bonners Ferry, St. Mary's, the Silver Valley, this spring, and brought our trailer full of car seats and portable cribs and tried to partnered with agencies in hopes to establish permanent safety stations in each of the communities. So please, we'll start again our next round, which will be this fall. So if you have families up in that area, please, all of our spots will be listed on our website. So I'm starting to plan all of that, but I did have a question. We struggled to find a partner agency up in Priest River. I know there's a huge need up there for every and all resources. But like we really struggled. We partnered with the food bank last fall, but they weren't really active. I think they're just totally overworked. And then this spring we just got a spot at the, oh my gosh, like the community center there at the end of town, but it's really hard to reach families if I don't have a really good partner agency. So if anybody has any ideas for me, I tried Priest River Ministries. They were not interested in partnering because of liability in their parking lot. I don't know. But if anybody has any ideas for me, I would love, I hate to cross them off our list, but I mean, we were up there and nobody came. So it was
Anybody-
really struggled up there.
Anybody have a thought, idea for Liz?
I would recommend talking with Conixu. I
Okay.
know that they go up there and they're doing like some pediatrics up there. I just met with them yesterday and they were talking about different outreach up there, and they're kind of in a stage of like really wanting to expand and get into those smaller areas. So I can send you some contact info for some different people I've been working with.
Perfect.
And hopefully that'll help.
It's a great start. Thanks, Michaela.
Liz, I'll check with NAMI Far North too and see if they have
Okay.
some connections there.
Okay.
Because I was gonna say Priest River Ministries because that's my connection for Point in Time, but they already said no, huh?
Yep, they did.
Hey,
Thank
did the tribe ever reach out to you, Liz?
Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
Yeah, we partnered with them in Plummer like a couple weeks ago and it was wild.
Perfect. Okay.
It was great. Great wild. Like tons of families. It was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
Awesome. Who's next?
I'll go next.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna run down the list of events coming up. So the Tribal Resource Gathering, and Liz, this might be something that you guys would want to do a table at. It's on October 24th at the casino, from 10 to 2. And they would really love it if people from the different counties in North Idaho would participate in this event. They're really reaching out. The tribe is really reaching out to try to get some collaboration going. Silver Valley Cares is on August 3rd. Same thing with Silver Valley. They really want collaborative partners in the other counties in North Idaho. And then we have support, of course, I always do the plug for support. October 3rd, we're looking for chefs and sponsors and nickel sellers. The Housing Resource Fair will be September 6th at McEwen, and I really need people to do some tables. I've got about 9 vendors right now, and I'd really like some more for that to let some of the Alice and below population know what resources are available in the community. It doesn't have to be housing. You don't have to provide housing resources to be there. St. Vincent's, Hayden Furniture Depot is doing a hot rod car show on July 28th. There's going to be hot dogs and live music and he's got probably about 60 vehicles lined up to like fill the parking lot up there by Walgreens on Appleway. And that's the 28th from 11 until like 6 o'clock at night or something. It's like a long, long day. And proceeds from that benefit St. Vincent's. And then they're on July 27th, which is a Saturday, we're going to be doing a human rights coffee house conversation at First Pres. Jeanette Laster is going to be there to talk about lots of things because there's been a lot of stuff that's happened, good and bad, in this county. And what you can do and what you do if you see harassment or anything going on. And then the last thing I had is the coffee house that was going to happen on August 24th. Tyson Durbin was going to spearhead that from the Kroc Center. It's going to need to be rescheduled because he had a family emergency or a family something that came up that he has to go to then. So I'll keep you posted on what the date change is for that. But that's parenting in a digital age. How do you raise your kids safely in the age of social media? So, and I did want to say, here's a win. Community Action Partnership did a great community assessment plan yesterday morning, and some of the people on this call were at it. And it's interesting because a lot of the issues that we just talked about with the Alice report were the issues that people brought up as the needs in our community and our, the surrounding counties. So lots of different places are all saying the same things and, having the same message. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it gave me some ideas about how to, show people where to get the information they need to try to like get funding for CityLink and, get the bus route, the hours in the day and stuff. So service workers can work at night. And childcare workers, so we can get childcare in the evening for people that don't work, 8 to 5, 8 to 4, or 9 to 5. A big population that needs childcare works at nighttime in the restaurants and the hotels in this community. So that's all.
Awesome. Thank you, Donna.
Donna, can you tell me who your contact is for the casino event on the 24th of October?
Vicky, if you guys want to go, just let me know. And Sherry Bolter's keeping a spreadsheet, but I call Sherry and say, hey, add companions. Because I think
and the event at McEwen is on what date?
September 6th, and that just let me know, just send me an email. I think I already have you down for that one, Vic.
Yeah.
But I'll check.
Okay, thank you.
The Commission for the Blind will also participate on the event on October 24th. Is the September 3rd, is that Memorial or Labor Day weekend? Is that the Monday or is that the day after?
It's the Friday. Like Monday would be earlier in the week, and then it's Friday morning.
Okay.
It's 11 to 2.
Add us to that one as well. And we'll have a table there for sure. Thank you.
And what agency is it again, so I get it right?
It's no, you're fine. It's Jackie Stallings, and it's the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired.
Oh, okay, great.
And Donna, you can add Mountain States Early Head Start to the housing fair as well.
Yay. Okay. Did you guys want to go to the tribal one too?
When is that one again?
That's in October 24th.
Let me find out. I'm going to be on leave at that time, so I haven't looked that far forward.
Okay.
Donna, this is KJ from Idaho Children's Trust Fund, and put me as the tentative for the tribal resource one.
Okay, great. Thanks, KJ.
Awesome. Who's
So
next?
I'll just go quickly since I've stole the mic and dominated. So I'm Jackie Stallings. I'm from the Idaho Commission for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I feel like maybe people know a little bit about us, but I'm just going to be very brief and say we do provide a lot of services for older blind people, going into their homes, doing things like magnification assessments, marking appliances, trying to keep people as independent as possible that are experiencing vision loss. I was just going to very briefly speak on one program because we have money right now. I do not run this program, but it's called Sight Restoration. And it is specifically for people who need a sight-saving surgery who do not have the financial means to make the surgery happen. Most of the time that's cataracts. And they do, if they have health insurance, but they can't afford the copay, we can assist with that. And if they have no health insurance, we can also assist them with cataract surgery. So yeah, now's the time to refer if you have anybody that you know of that's putting off cataract surgery because of finances. We can help them with that. And it is a very limited amount of money we get every year. It's refunded in July. So they'll be put on a referral list until they can get served. Yeah. And then I do vocational rehabilitation. So I work with anybody who's blind or visually impaired who's interested in work. Yeah. And please reach out if you have anybody.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'll go next if that's okay.
Yep.
So 2 things from the United Way, and specifically 2 of the areas that I work with. The first one, and both of them, you'll find the forms on our website, is the Day of Caring at the end of September. Let me grab the exact day. Is it September 26th? So September 26th is the United Way's Day of Caring. It's a day-long event where you can participate either as a site, and so that form to nominate yourself as a site, as a project where people come to, thank you for that. I think Mark put the link in there. Thank you. Where you can nominate yourself as a site or as a project, and we then match you with volunteers, or the reverse, if you want to be a volunteer, if you're with a company or other organization that wants to go out into the community and make a difference at a site. Both of these forms are on our website. Nominate yourself as a volunteer team to go volunteer, or be a site where people come and suggest your project. So that's Day of Caring. We feed you lunch. It could be a short-term project that you nominate yourself for, 2 hours worth of work are needed, or maybe it's a 6-hour project. So it's not a 10 or 12-hour day. So that's Day of Caring, September 26th. That is to be found on our website. Number 2 is the Community Care Fund. The United Way has funds available again this year that we make available for community projects. Community Care Funds is what they are called. And that form to request the start of the process is a letter of interest. There we are. Wow. Somebody is posting the links for me. Thank you. The process starts with a letter of interest. That letter of interest will be live on the 15th of July, and that window for the letter of interest closes on the 2nd of August. We then powwow, huddle in the corner, figure out from the letters of interest who should move forward, and then the full application process follows that. More huddling takes place in October, and then the funds are dispersed in December. So Community Care Funds process kicks off on the 15th of July. The form will be live on our website. So if you have a project you want to suggest funds for, up to $15,000, please go look for the form on our website starting July 15th.
Awesome. Thanks for those updates, Nikki. If you didn't get a chance to get an update, just send those to me and I'll make sure they get out to the team here. We are at 10 o'clock and I know you guys have a busy day, so have a great rest of your week. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jim.